The neon skyline of New Neo-Tokyo pulsed with life, a kaleidoscope of colors reflecting off the towering skyscrapers. In this bustling metropolis where humans and aliens coexisted, Galactic Bites stood out as a beacon of intergalactic harmony. The cafe was an architectural marvel, a blend of sleek futurism and eclectic alien aesthetics, drawing patrons from across the galaxy. Lyra Xenon pushed open the glass doors of the cafe, her senses immediately assaulted by the rich aroma of exotic brews and the hum of animated conversations in dozens of languages. At 23, Lyra was already a seasoned cultural liaison, her days spent navigating the complexities of interspecies relations. Today was particularly important. She was preparing for a high-stakes peace negotiation between Earth and the Larians, an enigmatic alien race known for their stringent diplomacy. "Good morning, Lyra," chirped Kai, a barista with iridescent scales and a perpetually cheerful demeanor. He handed her a menu tablet, the holographic display flickering to life. "Morning, Kai," Lyra replied, flashing a smile. "Got any new specials today?" Kai's eyes twinkled. "Actually, we have a batch of freshly baked human cookies. They're quite popular among the non-humans. Care to try one?" Lyra hesitated, her curiosity piqued. "Sure, why not? I'll take one." As she settled into her favorite corner booth, the cafe buzzed around her. Holographic screens displayed news from various star systems, and the gentle hum of translation devices created a symphony of languages. Lyra took a deep breath, centering herself. The negotiations with the Larians were crucial, and her role as mediator was pivotal. Kai returned with the cookie, placing it on the table with a flourish. It looked innocent enough, a perfectly golden treat with chocolate chunks. Lyra took a tentative bite, savoring the sweet, buttery flavor. Moments later, an unfamiliar warmth spread through her body, a tingling sensation that made her pulse quicken. "What the?" she muttered, fanning herself as a wave of heat washed over her. Unbeknownst to her, the cookie was infused with an aphrodisiac meant for the Zillions, a species with a vastly different biochemistry. The effects on a human were unpredictable at best. Panic set in as Lyra realized the intensity of her predicament. Her skin felt electrified, every touch magnified 100-fold. She looked around, desperate for a distraction, but the cafe's vibrant energy only heightened her arousal. She needed to stay focused. The peace talks were just hours away. "Lyra, are you all right?" Kai's concerned voice cut through her haze. I think there's something wrong with the cookie," she stammered, her cheeks flushing. Kai's expression shifted from concern to horror. "Oh no, you didn't. That was meant for the Zillion delegation. It's a potent aphrodisiac for them." Lyra groaned inwardly. "Kai, I have peace talks with the Larians today. This can't be happening." Kai quickly fetched a glass of water, his scales flickering with anxiety. "I'm so sorry, Lyra. Is there anything I can do?" Just give me a moment," Lyra said, taking a deep breath. She needed to find a way to control the effects before the negotiations began. The fate of interspecies harmony depended on it. As she sat there, battling the rising tide of desire, Lyra couldn't help but marvel at the absurdity of her situation. Diplomatic crises were one thing, but this? This was a new level of complication. With determination etched on her face, she vowed to overcome this unexpected challenge and ensure the peace talks proceeded without a hitch. Lyra stood before the shimmering glass doors of the United Galactic Embassy, the epicenter of diplomacy in New Neo-Tokyo. She took a deep breath, willing herself to focus. The effects of the cookie still lingered, a persistent, distracting hum at the edge of her consciousness. She could not afford to let it interfere with the peace negotiations between Earth and the Larians. Inside the Grand Hall, the air was thick with anticipation. Delegates from countless species mingled, their varied forms creating a tapestry of colors and shapes. The Larians were particularly striking, with their crystalline skin that glowed faintly under the ambient light. They communicated through a complex combination of spoken language and bioluminescent patterns. Requiring Lyra's full attention and expertise, as she approached the conference table, Lyra could feel the eyes of the delegates on her, a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Ambassador Zorith, the leader of the Larian delegation, stood to greet her. His crystalline features reflected a spectrum of colors, shifting with his mood. "Welcome, Liaison Xenon," Zorith said, his voice a melodic blend of notes. "We are eager to begin." "Thank you, Ambassador," Lyra replied, offering a respectful bow. "I apologize for any delay. Shall we proceed?" As they settled into the discussions, Lyra's mind struggled to keep pace. Every sensation was amplified, her focus splintered by the lingering effects of the aphrodisiac. She clenched her fists under the table, channeling her discomfort into determination. The negotiations began with formalities, each side presenting their opening statements. Lyra translated fluently, her voice steadied despite the turmoil within. However, as the discussions delved into more complex issues, her control began to slip. She found herself distracted by the way the light played off Zoritha's crystalline skin, the patterns mesmerizing. "Liaison Xenon, are you well?" Zoritha's question cut through her reverie, his bioluminescent patterns shifting to a worried blue. Lyra forced a smile. "I'm fine, Ambassador. Just a bit under the weather." "Please, continue." The room grew tense as the negotiations reached a critical juncture. The Larians proposed a mutual defense pact, a significant step toward solidifying the alliance. Lyra's role was to ensure the terms were clearly understood and agreeable to both parties, but as Zorith detailed the specifics, Lyra's concentration wavered. She misinterpreted a key point, translating a provision about shared resources as a demand for exclusive access. The room erupted in confusion. The human delegates bristling at the perceived overreach. "Liaison Xenon, there seems to be a misunderstanding," Zorith said, his tone gentle but firm. "Our intention was not to demand exclusivity." Lyra's heart pounded in her chest, panic rising. She needed to regain control before the talks derailed entirely. "I apologize for the error, Ambassador. Let me correct that." She took a deep breath, focusing on the task at hand. Slowly, she clarified the miscommunication, using every ounce of her diplomatic skill to soothe the ruffled feathers on both sides. The tension in the room gradually eased, but Lyra knew she was walking a tightrope. As the talks continued, Lyra felt her resolve strengthening. Despite the distraction, she was determined to see this through. She engaged in more direct dialogue with the Larians, using humor and sincerity to bridge the cultural gaps. Her efforts began to pay off, the atmosphere lightening as mutual understanding grew. By the end of the session, significant progress had been made. The foundations of a promising alliance were laid, and both sides expressed optimism for the future. Lyra excused herself, her body trembling with relief and lingering arousal. In a quiet corner of the embassy, she leaned against a wall, catching her breath. The day's events had pushed her to her limits, but she had managed to hold the negotiations together. Now, she just needed to find a way to completely rid herself of the cookie's effects before the next round of talks. As she composed herself, Lyra couldn't help but smile at the absurdity of the situation. In the grand scheme of intergalactic diplomacy, it seemed even the smallest things, a misplaced cookie, a momentary lapse, could have monumental consequences. She vowed to face whatever challenges lay ahead with the same determination, ready to navigate the complexities of interspecies relations with grace and humor. The second round of negotiations was set to begin, and Lyra felt the weight of her responsibility pressing down harder than ever. Despite the temporary reprieve, the aphrodisiac's effects had not fully dissipated, leaving her in a heightened state of sensitivity. She straightened her suit and took a deep breath, stepping back into the grand hall of the United Galactic Embassy with a resolve as crystalline as the Larian skin. Ambassador Zorith greeted her with a curious tilt of his head. "Liaison Xenon, are you prepared to continue?" Lyra nodded, her smile unwavering. "Yes, Ambassador. Let's ensure we solidify our progress from earlier." The atmosphere was cautiously optimistic. the earlier tension replaced by a sense of tentative cooperation. The discussions resumed, this time focusing on more intricate details of the proposed alliance. Lyra's role as translator and mediator was crucial, and she knew any further mistakes could unravel the fragile trust they had built. However, as the talks delved deeper into technicalities, the lingering effects of the cookie began to flare up again. Her skin prickled with warmth, and she could feel her concentration slipping. Desperately, she tried to anchor herself in the conversation, but her mind kept wandering, every sensation amplified to an almost unbearable degree. In a particularly delicate moment, Zorith proposed a joint research initiative. The human delegates expressed enthusiasm, but Lyra, distracted, misinterpreted a key term. The error sent ripples of confusion through the room, the human delegation's excitement turning to suspicion. Liaison Xenon, please clarify, one of the human diplomats said. A note of irritation in his voice. Are the Larians suggesting exclusive rights to our research data? Zoritha's crystalline skin shimmered with anxiety, his bioluminescent patterns flashing in alarm. That is not our intention, he said, his tone strained. We propose a collaborative effort with shared benefits. Lyra's heart sank. She had to regain control. Stepping forward, she addressed the room, her voice steady despite the chaos inside her. I apologize for the confusion. The Larians' proposal is indeed for a collaborative effort, with mutual sharing of research data and benefits. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Lyra knew she had to act decisively. She turned to Zorith. Her eyes pleading for understanding. Ambassador, I must confess something. Earlier today, I consumed a human cookie containing an aphrodisiac meant for another species. The effects have been distracting, to say the least. A murmur of surprise rippled through the room, but Zoritha's expression softened, his colors shifting to a soothing green. Your honesty is commendable, Liaison Xenon. These negotiations are important, but so is your well-being. Lyra took a deep breath, her relief palpable. Thank you, Ambassador. I promise to give my utmost to these talks, despite this unforeseen challenge. Her confession seemed to break the tension, the room relaxing as mutual understanding took root. The human delegates, initially taken aback, began to chuckle, the absurdity of the situation cutting through their frustration. Let's proceed with clear minds and clear intentions, one of the human diplomats said. Smiling at Lyra. We appreciate your dedication, despite the circumstances. With the air cleared, the negotiations resumed with renewed vigor. Lyra's honesty had not only salvaged the talks but had also strengthened the bond of trust between the delegates. The discussions flowed more smoothly, the collaborative spirit growing stronger with each exchange. By the end of the session, significant agreements had been reached. The foundations of the joint research initiative were laid out, and both sides expressed optimism about the alliance's future. As the delegates began to disperse, Lyra felt a surge of pride and relief. She had managed to navigate one of the most challenging days of her career with integrity and resilience. Stepping outside into the cool evening air, Lyra leaned against a pillar, a smile spreading across her face. The cookie incident had turned what should have been a routine negotiation into a near fiasco, but it had also revealed the power of honesty and vulnerability in diplomacy. She vowed to remember this lesson as she continued her work, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with the same determination. And perhaps, she mused with a chuckle, she would be a bit more careful with her snacks in the future. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a twilight glow over New Neo-Tokyo, Lyra stepped into the warm, familiar confines of Galactic Bites. The cafe, now quieter than during the bustling hours of the day, exuded a comforting ambience. Soft, ambient lights bathed the room in a soothing hue, a stark contrast to the chaotic energy she had navigated earlier. Kai, the ever-cheerful barista, looked up from behind the counter, his iridescent scales catching the light. His eyes widened when he saw Lyra. Lyra. You're back. How did the negotiations go? Lyra approached the counter, her exhaustion evident but her smile genuine. It was a day to remember, Kai. We managed to iron out the kinks and reach an agreement. The peace talks were a success. Kai let out a relieved sigh, his scales shifting to a warm, reassuring shade. That's fantastic news. I'm glad to hear it. But about the cookie. Lyra laughed softly, shaking her head. Oh, don't worry about that. It was an unexpected challenge, but one I managed to overcome. In fact, it ended up being a valuable lesson. Kai handed her a cup of calming herbal tea, a gesture of goodwill. I'm really sorry for the mix-up. If there's anything I can do to make it up to you. Lyra took the cup with a grateful nod. Just having a quiet moment here is more than enough. Sometimes, it's the unexpected events that teach us the most about ourselves. As she settled into her favorite corner booth, the soothing aroma of the tea mingled with the remnants of her day's adrenaline. Lyra reflected on the events that had unfolded, the awkwardness, the miscommunications, and the eventual resolution. She realized that her unplanned honesty had not only salvaged the negotiations but had also strengthened the foundation of trust between Earth and the Larians. The cafe's gentle hum and the faint clinking of dishes created a calming backdrop as Lyra sipped her tea. Her thoughts drifted back to the day's trials and triumphs. Despite the initial embarrassment and discomfort, the experience had reinforced her belief in the power of transparency and resilience in diplomacy. Lyra's thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of a small, holographic message from Ambassador Zorath. The message was brief but sincere, expressing appreciation for her candor and professionalism. It concluded with an invitation to a celebratory reception marking the successful conclusion of the negotiations. A smile spread across Lyra's face. The Larian's gesture was a testament to the positive outcome of the day's events. It was a reminder that even the most challenging situations could yield meaningful results when approached with honesty and dedication. As Lyra finished her tea, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The day's challenges had tested her in ways she hadn't anticipated, but they had also highlighted her strengths and commitment to her role. She knew that her work as a cultural liaison was far from over, but she was ready to face whatever came next with the same determination and openness. With a final, contented sigh, Lyra stood up and made her way to the door. The night air felt cool and refreshing against her skin. As she stepped out into the city's glowing streets, she couldn't help but feel hopeful about the future. The path of intergalactic diplomacy was fraught with unexpected twists, but with each challenge came an opportunity to grow and connect in new and profound ways. As she walked into the heart of New Neo-Tokyo, Lyra embraced the promise of the unknown, ready to navigate the complexities of her world with renewed confidence and a touch of humor.